If you traveled 250 million years into the past, you'd be witnessing the dawn of dinosaurs. One of the leading theories is that dinosaurs evolved from a species known as archosaurs. These were the dominant reptiles that appeared during the late Permian period. To some, they may even look like dinosaurs, and that's because they were ancestors to these incredible creatures. Over time, the archosaurs split up into two groups. One of these groups led to crocodiles, and the other led to dinosaurs, which continued evolving into thousands of different species. One of the main traits they eventually gained was their bipedal abilities. Early dinosaurs began to walk on two legs, freeing their front limbs for other uses like grabbing food and defending themselves. And that's just the start of their evolutionary journey. Let's travel back in time 250 million years ago and witness the history of dinosaurs in 10 minutes. Triassic period. As you enter this new era, you'll notice that the dinosaurs running around look pretty different from what you're used to seeing. One of the earliest dinosaurs that emerged from the archosaurs was the Eoraptor. This little guy was about the size of a dog, barely 1 meter tall and weighing in at a meager 10 kilograms. You know, we typically think of dinosaurs as these massive creatures, but it would be a couple million more years before that started to happen. We'll check in to see how those dinos are growing in size as we travel through time, but for now, let's see what's happening to Earth during the Triassic period. The supercontinent Pangaea starts to fragment slowly, altering global climates and ecosystems. The climate was generally hot and dry, and there were no polar ice caps, creating a stark contrast to what you're typically used to in modern-day Earth. The vegetation was also very different and was crucial for the survival and evolution of dinosaurs. The plants have different characteristics as well. Some are tough, some nutritious, and others potentially poisonous. Each one of them will influence the dietary and adaptive strategies of different dinosaur species. Speaking of which, what are some other dinosaurs doing during this time? Weighing in at about 23 kilograms and 1 meter tall, we have the Coelophysis. It was a little bit bigger than the Eoraptor, but that didn't stop it from being a fast and agile predator that likely preyed on smaller animals. Now, the Herosaurus was slightly taller at about 1.1 meters but was a lot heavier at about 350 kilograms. Then we have the Plateosaurus. Now, this guy is way bigger than me. It stood tall at about 3 meters and weighed up to 4,000 kilograms. This was one of the earliest examples of how big dinosaurs could grow, but wait, they get even bigger than this. Despite their impressive forms, dinosaurs weren't the dominant creatures during the Triassic. They had to share their environments with many other organisms, all vying for survival in the diverse ecosystems. This was the case until the Triassic period would experience a great extinction event. This was likely caused by massive volcanic activity, climate change, and potentially even some small asteroid impacts. This will have a significant effect on life on Earth and lead to the extinction of numerous species. But it wasn't all bad, especially for our dinosaurs. This moment set the stage to bring new opportunities to these species, leading to them dominating the Earth. Jurassic period. Now, instead of dinosaurs simply surviving, this is where they thrive. Over the millions of years, different species have been evolving, and dinosaurs are now the rulers of the Earth. They spread across continents, dominating the lush forests and arid deserts. Occupying these areas were some massive dinosaurs, ones that you're probably a lot more familiar with. We have the Stegosaurus, Brachiosaurus, and Allosaurus. These were some of the largest creatures ever to walk the Earth. But you'd quickly notice that it wasn't just these massive beasts that were roaming around. This era also saw the evolution of theropods. These were smaller dinosaurs that had more of a bird-like form. One of the most famous was the Archaeopteryx. It was kind of like a mix between a dinosaur and a bird, with feathers and wings but also with bony teeth and a tail. The Archaeopteryx was a crucial link between birds and dinosaurs. If you wait about 100 million more years, they'll evolve into the birds we know today. Oh wait, is that a spoiler? After 56 million years, the Jurassic period comes to an end. This was after yet another extinction event happened. Luckily, this one is more minor. However, due to climate change, volcanic activity, and sea levels changing, some species are going extinct. This once again changes the landscape as the dinosaurs enter their final era. Cretaceous period. Okay, we've now entered the Cretaceous period, and as we've been traveling through these millions of years, you may have noticed something's missing, right? One of the dinosaurs' biggest stars hasn't appeared yet. Say hello to the Tyrannosaurus rex. The T-Rex was a massive beast. It was 3.7 meters tall and 12 meters long. Not only that, but it was a whopping 9 tons, equipped with a powerful jaw and incredibly sharp teeth. The T-Rex dominated the Cretaceous kingdom. It was one of the most dominant predators history has ever seen. This colossal beast wasn't just scavenging leftovers. It was an active hunter, stalking its prey with keen eyesight and a heightened sense of smell. Among its favorite meals were the sizable herbivores like the Edmontosaurus. But the T-Rex didn't stop there. It would take on formidable opponents like the Triceratops, and even other smaller theropods if the opportunity arose. With its powerful jaws filled with 12-inch teeth and its strong hind limbs that allowed it to run at speeds of up to 40 kilometers per hour, the T-Rex was a master of the hunt. But this period wasn't just filled with massive beasts like the T-Rex. Look around and you'll also notice even more feathered dinosaurs in the Cretaceous period, one of them being the Velociraptor. Now, you typically see them portrayed like this with no feathers, but evidence suggests that these creatures were quite feathered. Now, the feathers weren't necessarily used for flying, more for warmth and stability. And this one is the Microraptor. Now, unlike the Velociraptor, its feathers likely were used for flight, giving us crucial insight into the evolution of birds. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, Pangaea was breaking up and forming into the continents we know today. But because of this, some dinosaurs were forced to migrate and separate into different areas of the world. These dinosaurs had to adapt to their new environments, potentially changing the course of their evolution. But none of this matters when we consider what happens next. 66 million years ago, an asteroid as big as Mount Everest was headed on a deadly collision course with Earth. The impact was so devastating that it wiped out the most gigantic, deadliest reptiles to ever roam our planet. But the dinosaurs didn't just die from one big boom. No, they faced a slow, agonizing end. How did this extinction event cause the largest tsunami Earth has ever seen? And what exactly happened after the big reptiles were gone? Hold on tight. We're taking you on the most epic and deadly trip of your life. This dinosaur-ending asteroid is terrifying. Not only was it about 10 kilometers in diameter, but it also traveled incredibly fast, between 10 and 30 kilometers per second. At this point, it was a blazing fireball as it hurtled down to Earth. The air in front of it was compressing and heating up to unimaginably hot temperatures. Just before the impact, the asteroid could have been as hot as the surface of the Sun. Once it entered our atmosphere, it only took this massive space rock a few seconds to reach Earth's surface and alter the course of life forever. As the asteroid slammed into Earth off the coast of where Mexico is now, it sent huge amounts of debris up into the air. The shocking blast wave killed everything in its way, and from here it was only getting worse. This powerful blast ejected bits of the Earth's surface into the atmosphere, and minutes later, scorching hot pieces of glass and rock rained back down. Some of the debris reacted with the atmosphere, causing acid rain that would last for years. The land was burning. The fires caused by this devastating impact spread across the continent like literal wildfire, killing more and more life along the way. And then, just when you thought the apocalyptic scenario couldn't get any more intense, well, it did. The impact of the asteroid hitting Earth was so powerful that it sent shock waves through the planet, and all that energy had to go somewhere, causing a massive tsunami. A wall of water over 10 meters high raced across the ocean. This wasn't your regular tsunami. It was a staggering 30,000 times more powerful than anything you see today. As this monstrous wave spread across the North Atlantic and South Pacific, coastlines didn't stand a chance. The wave hit with such force that it destroyed and reshaped the continent. If you were there to witness this apocalyptic destruction, well, you wouldn't survive any of it. But some dinosaurs did. Yeah, the ones further away from ground zero weren't immediately obliterated by the impact. They weren't incinerated by the resulting infernos, and they managed to avoid being swept away by the mega tsunami. But still, their fate was sealed. As the dust began to settle, it was the start of a nuclear winter. Even though it wasn't nuclear weapons that caused it, the effect was the same. The massive amount of debris in the air blocked the sunlight for months, maybe even years. Earth suddenly became a cold, dark place, and the dinos weren't ready for it. As temperatures plummeted and fires burned out, what was left behind was a barren, desolate wasteland. Plants and crops died, which means herbivores had no food, and without herbivores, carnivores had no prey. It wasn't long before these once mighty, massive dinosaurs starved to death. And there you have it, the end of the most epic extinction event. You'd think that'd be the end of it, right? But no, life goes on. Researchers have created models based on fossilized skulls. The models suggest that the dinosaurs may have made low-frequency rumbles or bird-like calls. Regardless of what they sounded like exactly, the scientific community agrees that they didn't sound like this. So, is it possible that one day we'll be able to clone dinosaur DNA and build our very own Jurassic Park? Well, as cool as that may be, it's never going to happen. Since DNA degrades over time, the chance of finding intact dino DNA is, well, basically zero. And even if some were found, extracting the DNA without any contamination or deterioration would be incredibly difficult. Now, what if the DNA was preserved in amber similar to the movie? Well, that's also highly unlikely since DNA can't survive for tens of millions of years inside of amber. Millions of years ago, Earth looked very different. All the continents were fused into one, teeming with life both beautiful and terrifying. When you think of prehistoric times, you might picture a T-Rex rampaging through the jungle with its razor-sharp teeth. But even before the dinosaurs, there were other giant creatures ruling the Earth. Yeah, welcome to the Permian period. This epoch started 300 million years ago. Back then, our planet had one supercontinent, Pangaea, surrounded by a world ocean called Pangaea. The Permian period began at the end of an ice age when temperatures were much cooler than today. Then, during early Permian days, Earth warmed to a lush environment with a diversity of plants and a rapid evolution of insect and animal life. Only, as you probably know, everything is ever-changing on our blue marble. Over the next 50 million years, Earth kept growing hotter and drier. Eventually, the most deadly event in the history of our planet wiped out nearly everything that ever lived here. Scientists call this event the Great Dying, and it was the most catastrophic mass extinction event the Earth has ever seen. And the Earth has seen 5 of them. But before we get to all this doom and gloom, let me take you on an epic journey back in time. Here in the Permian period, some of the most incredible species that roamed our young planet are about to emerge. If you could time travel nearly 300 million years into the past, you'd land smack dab in the middle of the supercontinent Pangaea. Earth's smaller continents would have just finished colliding with each other to form this enormous land mass, taking up 1/3 of the planet's surface. There was likely less oxygen in the air than there is now, but you still might be able to breathe. Oh, and bring a jacket because it would likely be chilly, with some areas averaging no more than a brisk 4 degrees Celsius. But don't worry, things will soon start heating up. By the end of the early Permian, the Ice Age was on its way out, and Pangaea was becoming a lush world. Plants and animals started to thrive. This was a volcanic world. Violent eruptions changed the climate, shaped the landscape, and paved the way for evolution. When giant swamp forests began drying out, plant life had to adapt. And so, 290 million years ago, Earth saw the very first seed-bearing plants called gymnosperms. These plants carried seeds on their cones and they spread across the supercontinent like wildfire. The ancient evergreen forests of the early Permian were hiding something familiar. Just like today, you could find cicadas and beetles piercing and sucking on the plants. And the cutest of them all, cockroaches. Only these weren't the cockroaches you know today. These prehistoric vermin were gigantic, the size of birds. But despite their size, cockroaches never ruled prehistoric land. And that's good news, am I right? No, something much more fascinating was roaming Pangaea, the now extinct ancestor of primitive mammals, Dimetrodon. This animal was as fascinating as it was terrifying. Encountering a Dimetrodon would be quite a sight to behold. This ancient lizard grew to 5 meters long and weighed 225 kilograms. It had a large sail running down its spine. Scientists think this sail helped the reptile regulate its body temperature, soaking up warmth during the daytime and dissipating excess heat during the cooler nights. It would walk towards you like a crocodile and act like a total menace. Dimetrodon was an apex predator of its time. Watch out for a mix of sharp and flat teeth that would slice you open and grind you up. In the Middle Permian period, other mammal-like reptiles took over the planet, therapsids. They had strong jaws with sharp teeth and a somewhat upright stance thanks to their legs being situated underneath their bodies. Therapsid reptiles vary from the 5-meter-long, likely omnivorous Dinosaurs to the 5 times smaller Lystrosaurus. You could meet plenty more therapsids if you stuck around for another 20 million years. During the Middle Permian period, Earth kept getting hotter. The average global temperature on Pangaea grew to about 25 degrees Celsius, and volcanoes were spitting greenhouse gases out into the atmosphere. Due to the changing climate, sea levels were shifting, but marine life found ways to thrive. If you were to take a dip in the prehistoric superocean, you'd be swimming alongside ancient sharks and bony primitive fish. Many more complex marine species came and went as the environment kept changing. In the late Permian period, you could have a friendly encounter with another reptile, Lystrosaurus. These looked like a cross between a lizard and a pig, but unlike all the scary prehistoric monsters out there, Lystrosaurus was a herbivore. It was just 1 meter long and had powerful front legs for burrowing. Soon, another cute mammal-like lizard evolved, the Thrinaxodon. The Thrinaxodon looked like a giant rodent. It was about 1 meter long, had whiskers, and fed on small animals and insects. Now, during this time, something bad was brewing in the air. A large amount of volcanic activity was displacing oxygen from the atmosphere. Scientists think there was as little as 10% oxygen in the air compared to 21% today. You'd have a hard time breathing in that environment, and the temperature kept rising and rising, with an average temperature of about 28 degrees Celsius. This lush prehistoric world was turning into an oven. All good things must come to an end, and sadly, this period came to a particularly brutal one. About 252 million years ago, about 90% of all plant and animal life was wiped out. This tragic moment is called the Great Dying, and it was Earth's most devastating mass extinction event. Scientists still debate what caused this catastrophic extinction. Most theories suggest it was the result of explosive volcanic activity. As huge volcanic eruptions swept the continent, massive amounts of ash were unleashed into the atmosphere. So much ash that it blocked out most, if not all, of the incoming sunlight. And with no sunlight, global temperatures dropped suddenly. Plants couldn't perform their photosynthetic processes and died off. And without plants, the very basis of their food chain, animals soon followed. Things got worse before they got better. Because of all the carbon dioxide emitted during the volcanic eruptions, global temperatures rose again, and not just to where they were but higher, much higher. This caused the superocean to lose most of its oxygen, and unable to breathe, a majority of the Permian sea animals perished. Eventually, over 95% of marine species and more than 70% of land animals became extinct. If Pangaea existed today, in theory, you could drive from California to England since they'd both be part of the same land mass. And although you may only think of Pangaea as just another piece of land, it would be much more than that. It's played an integral part in human and animal evolution. If Pangaea had not broken apart, you may not be here today. But let's assume it didn't, and that we survived and evolved to be the people we are today. What would the Earth be like? First, let's talk about where your country would be located. North America would be right here. Europe would be a lot closer, just to the east. Asia would be up north by Russia, and Antarctica would remain down south. India and Australia would be further south, connected to Antarctica. These countries that used to have hot climates would now be cold, covered with snow and ice. And those wouldn't be the only environmental changes. Regions in the middle of Pangaea would have lush rainforests along their borders, and as you travel further inland, it would become a desert. This would be due to Pangaea's land mass being so large, rain which comes from the ocean wouldn't be able to travel far enough inland, leaving parts of Pangaea practically uninhabitable by humans and other species. And weather up north would be different too, with Russia being much warmer than it is today. But the weather wouldn't be the only thing that would change on Pangaea. We might have less diversity of species. The species at the top of the food chain today would most likely remain there, but some of today's animals would not exist in Pangaea. They wouldn't have the chance to evolve. Fewer animals might make it easier to travel, and on this modern version of Pangaea, you'd probably want to do a lot of it. Luckily, you wouldn't have to go far. If you lived in Florida, you'd be right next to the Caribbean islands, Venezuela, and Brazil. You could visit all of these in a single day. And if you lived in Nova Scotia, Canada, you'd be driving distance from France, England, and Germany. Although this might sound like fun, a lot of countries would have new neighbors, which could cause some serious issues. For some places, like the United States, the new neighbors could be good. Canada and Mexico would be close by, and if there were ever a shortage of resources, they could come to help. And for other countries, new neighbors might not be so good. What if there was a civil war in your country? You couldn't just go to another continent, you would still be in Pangaea, and you'd have to travel far to find a safe place to hide. So you'd have to be careful. If Pangaea had never broken up, we might have never learned about the dinosaurs. In fact, we might have evolved with them. Dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, but if they hadn't, they could have evolved into our neighbors. If dinosaurs had continued to evolve on Pangaea, they might have become intelligent, as we did. We could have become friends with them, or we might have become their prey. Either way, the world would be much different today. While Pangaea would have its advantages and disadvantages, it would not be the same as the Earth we know today. So be thankful that the continents broke apart, and we got the world we have now.